Hi and welcome back to my channel. I had attempted a couple of times to do a diamond painting whip and chat while telling you about what I was reading for that week. However, I don't know what the exact date of my last video was, but according to my notes, the last book I read in my previous whip and chat was back on January 28th, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm going to double check that, because if that's the case, I have read quite a few books since then. So give me a moment to verify. I just want to turn the volume down on my device so that I don't. Give me 1 second. And then, yeah, it's been 2 weeks since I have done a whip and chat. And it doesn't mean that this channel hasn't been busy. I've done several book reviews, I've done some unboxings, and I framed a couple of diamond paintings on this channel, and I did my jigsaw puzzle collection. So I've been quite busy. And to fill you in, I'm just bringing Google Sheets back up to fill you in where I've been since the end of January, and it is currently Saturday, February 13th. Okay, I just brought up my 2020 reading spreadsheet. You don't really care what I did then, do you? So let's look at where we are now. Yes, I will diamond paint in just a moment. I just want to give you some stats. Where we are now, I have read 63 books for this year, which includes, I believe, 20. I gotta go check. I have to go check. Let's see. That brings me to 63 books for the year, which brings me to 24 books for February. And I am about 80% into the 25th book for this month, so I know I probably could have went ahead and finished that book, but I just wanted to go ahead and work on my diamond painting while I talk to you about what I've read. Another reason that I thought about doing this video today is that two of my sisters, Gail and Ari, are now diamond painting. Ari started maybe 3 days ago, and Gail just the night before last. So they've been asking me a lot of questions about, not so much Gail, but Ari has been asking me a lot of questions about what diamond painting is, what to buy, who to buy from, what kind of accessories are needed, and so forth. And I looked through my queue of videos, and I don't really talk about, I may have talked about how I got started, but at the very least I thought I would diamond paint right now while I talk about what I read in February so far. And that way, if either of my sisters watches this video, they can see me diamond painting. And yes, I'm using the single placer, which is really weird because I don't use a single placer, I use the multi-placer, but I guess I'm a little anxious about the video. So let's talk about where we are right now. The last book I talked about on this type of video is Murder in the Bell Tower. However, in some of my book reviews, the books that I'll touch base on in this video may have come as book reviews on this channel or book reviews on my blog. And to touch base where we are on my blog, my last review that I posted was Thursday, February 11th, so I've got to get some book reviews written today. And as of this month, I've written 14 blog posts. I won't say 14 reviews because one of those posts was a cover reveal. So 13 reviews went up on my blog this month. And as of this afternoon or evening, I will write up about 4 or 5 more reviews. My blog used to get about 10,000 views a month, but I went through some things. I got really depressed at the end of the year, and I really did not post much in November and December. Actually, I think I posted 13 and 13. I'm going to tell you, I'm not even going to guess. I know I should be diamond painting, but I'm looking at my laptop. In November, I posted 23 reviews, and in December I posted 13, and in January I posted 16. So I kind of got my groove back, because now for the month of February, as I mentioned, I've got 14 blog posts up. And so, like I said, some of the books that I will mention in this in this video here, I talked about either on the blog or here on this channel. Now, in the time frame of my last Whip and Chat video, and for those who are new to my channel or new to the various YouTube community, a Whip and Chat is a work in progress while chatting on video. That's pretty much what it is. Whip is work in progress. And my work in progress is Mountain Castle, which is a Dominic Davison diamond painting from Diamond Art Club. I started this weeks ago, and then I put it up, and then I only started it again at the beginning of maybe the middle of January. But I've been juggling a lot of balls and therefore not putting a lot of time into this painting. But I'm not in any rush to do it. It's just something that I've kind of allowed myself to fall behind on, and all of those drills just went down quickly, so let's straighten them up. Now, since I like to use the time while I diamond paint to talk about the books I read, let's get to it. And the first book I read since my last one is The Invisible Woman by Erika Roebuck. I am not going to be referring to any notes other than my spreadsheet with the titles, because I pretty much remember most what I read, even if I flub a little bit on characters' names, the scenarios, the plots, and things like that are there. The Invisible Woman was about a woman named Virginia Hall. She did eventually get married. Her married name was Goyo, but she is famous as her name Virginia Hall, which Hall being her maiden name. Virginia Hall basically was an American who went to 2 different colleges, and then she went to study in Paris. Now, while she was living in Paris, it was just before World War II broke out, and by then she had become fluent in several languages, and she wanted to be a diplomat. And at that time in history, women diplomats were very, very rare, and her applications for being a diplomat had been declined over and over again. Meanwhile, at some point, in her life, one of her hobbies was she was a hunter. So at some point in her life, in a hunting accident, she shot off her foot. So she went through a long recovery period, was fitted with a prosthesis, which in our time would be considered to be quite crude, but having a prosthesis and living abroad did not slow her down one bit. Now, World War II broke out and Hitler invaded Paris, so she was forced to flee Paris and headed to Britain. And when she was in Britain, she happened upon a network of spies that recruited her, and she became one of the few female spies at that time. Now, it was called the Resistance, and her job was very dangerous, and it involved a lot of radio broadcasts, or not radio, but transmissions that she would make from various locations. And in so doing, there was a lot of danger. Other spies had been killed, and her life was always on tenterhooks for more than one reason. And one of the reasons that her life was always in jeopardy is I don't remember the exact quote, but she was pretty much known as the woman of 1,000 faces, is the Germans knew that there was a female spy, and they were constantly trying to capture her. And she had wanted posters of her in her various disguises. I mean, she could be an old woman, she could be a young woman, she could be a heavyset woman, she could be a pregnant woman, she could be whatever or whoever she wanted in order to fool those people that were after her. And all while she worked what's the word I want to use? All while she was dedicated to what she was doing, she was hoping D-Day would happen and that the war would come to an end. It didn't mean her career came to an end, however, and actually, I don't really want to tell you what happened to her after the war because I really want you to read the book, but let's just say that a lot of her life was hidden from people as far as like historians and the general public because of the nature of her life during and after the war. Now, this book here is written as fiction, and I have heard after my review went up of a couple of recommendations of a book, and one of them is a nonfiction book that I will be reading. And there are a couple other books, and I believe I even heard that there's a film in process for Virginia Hall. So that's The Invisible Woman. Really, really good book. And I talked so much that my spreadsheet shut off. So I've got to go back and turn my tablet back on so I can tell you what's next. So let me log in. Okay. So then I had a blog tour for the Cowgirl Surprise Match by Nina Crespo. It's a Harlequin book, I believe. Let me see what the publisher is. Harlequin book. And I found out it was a third book in the series, so I was able to go, I think, to my library even. And I grabbed the first two books and I read those. And I did actually a series review of all three books when my blog tour date went up. These are contemporary romances, and they were pretty much just contemporary stories, very lighthearted in many respects. But the third book, the one that was for the blog tour, was touched on something a little bit more seriously than the previous two books. And I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been PTSD. I said I wasn't going to look at any notes, but I do have to look here. Not so much PTSD, but how stress affects someone's life and what they do and how they cope. So this book took on a little bit more of a serious edge. And the first two books in the series I gave 4 stars, but I also gave this one 4 stars. So those were The Cowboy's Claim, Her Sweet Temptation, and The Cowgirls Surprise Match. Then I read Silent Voices by Patricia Gibney, and I think this was the 8th book or the 9th book. It was the 9th book in the D.I. Lottie Parker series. I believe it's Detective Inspector Lottie Potter. Lottie. Okay, let me say her name again a little bit slower. Lottie Parker. I had to say that really slowly because it just did not want to come out right. So that was a really, really good book. It looks like I read this one in January, but I don't see the review on my blog, so maybe the review hasn't gone up yet, because sometimes I will write drafts. Anyway, this particular book, like I said, was the 9th book in the series. I read all of the previous books, and this book was really good. And I read 2 books in long-standing crime fiction series, so I'm really hoping I don't mess up this guy's name, but I believe Lottie was seeing someone named Boyd, Detective Boyd, who is a fellow officer, and they were going to get married. They had a wedding planned, but the problem with that was the case that was at hand. And I'm scrolling through my blog and I just don't see it, so therefore it must not be up. I'm going to bring up Blogger. I'm going to have to bring up the draft. I'm really frustrated here. Give me a second. Where are you at? No, it said it went up February 7th. I don't know why I didn't see it. Okay, so anyway, Lottie was is, I want to make sure I've got the right. Yes, okay. Like I said, I read 2 crime fiction series that were late in the game, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss up. So in this one here, there was a young woman that was killed, and now Lottie has a race against time to try to solve the murder, all while planning her wedding to Boyd. And it was a really good book. I believe I also did a video review of this book, and this one was kind of left with a cliffhanger, so I'm really anxious for the 10th book in the series. The next book I read won't be out until April 16th. It's Dead Secret by Noelle Holten. I have the draft of this review on my blog, but the actual review is currently live on Goodreads and NetGalley, but it won't go on my blog until release date. Can you tell I put these drills down really badly, so we're just gonna put them in an area that they weren't designated to go in, but it'll work. Dead Secret was the 3rd or 4th book in, oh gosh, why is my memory so blank right now? Maybe I'm tired. I'm going to admit that I haven't been sleeping well at all. But it's the 4th book in the DC Maggie Jameson series. And in this book here, Maggie is trying to work without her good friend, who was kind of like a profiler for the police, because her friend had experienced some great trauma, so now she's not on the case. So Maggie has a new partner, and her previous partner now has a promotion. So Maggie's working on a new case, and in this book, more of Maggie's personal life is coming out. And I won't spoil the book because it's going to be months before the book is actually released to other people to read it. But there's someone in the story that starts to kind of step into Maggie's life, which takes the professional part of Maggie and makes her consider more of her personal life. So this was really, really, really good. I gave it 5 stars. I love the series. As I mentioned, it's the 4th book, and I can't wait to read more. Then I had another book for Blog Tour, which was called Audrey's Inn by Elle Aycart, and it was the 3rd book in a trilogy. So I went to Kindle Unlimited, and I got the first 2 books, which were Deep Down and Grease Babe, and I read those. Usually I will write up a series review when I do this, but I didn't do that in this case. I just wrote the review for Audrey's Inn. And basically, this one here needs to be moved over. Okay, there we go. This book here, this series here is about the 3 OGs, original grandmothers, who are determined that their grandsons will find love. And each story, again, Deep Down and Grease Babe and Audrey's Inn, they are matchmakers. And like I said, Audrey's Inn was the one for Blog Tour, so that's the one that that drill just went somewhere. Okay, that was a little hard because I'm kind of like forcing these drills in here because all of this was done, so that was a little hard. I wasn't really able to do my multi-placing like I would because of working in that tight spot, so that area is done. So anyway, in Audrey's Inn, basically at the end of the 2nd book, which was Grease Babe, the 3 ladies, the 3 grandmothers were talking about how they missed their old friend Audrey. They were at a wedding, and they're talking about, there used to be 4 of them, and if you look at the cover, you'll see 4 women. And as they're talking, somebody walks up and says, "Hi, my name is Audrey." And they're like, "Wait a minute, you're a spit image of someone that we were just talking about." And right away, they're like, "Okay, here's our next, we're going to matchmake." I think Connor is the guy in this one. And the Connor's grandmother decided that this Audrey would be perfect for her grandson, and so therefore the matchmaking takes off yet again for these 3 ladies. So that was Audrey's in. I don't know if I can. Okay, I just want to stop that from ringing. And then I read The Truth About Melody Browne by Lisa Jewell. Now, I have been reading a lot of psychological thrillers from Lisa Jewell. So when I saw this book, there were two things about it. The first thing is it's a reprint, and I never had a chance to read it when it initially came out, maybe 10 years ago. And the second thing is this is a women's fiction and not a psychological thriller. So it didn't have the flavor of the type of books that I'm used to by Lisa Jewell. This was basically about a woman, Melody Browne, who at some point started to have memories of her past that, for reasons that will come out in the story, were buried. So most of the story is a lot of flashbacks where she starts to piece together parts of her past, and that's the vein in the story. It wasn't one of my favorite Lisa Jewell books, and I gave it 3 stars. Then I read The Lost Apothecary. That's for a blog tour, February 25th, so I have not yet written a review. And this book here was actually, I got this book as a as a digital arc. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at my canvas to see the next drill, which is number 7. I only need a couple, so I just dropped a few in here. So meanwhile, this book showed up on NetGalley as an audiobook as well. So even though I already had it as a digital, for my Kindle, I grabbed the audiobook, so I was able to listen to it as an audiobook. And basically, there was a woman, I think in the 1700s or 1800s, who was an apothecarian, and what she did is she created poisons and provided methods for women to get rid of their other halves, whether it was abuse or whatever reason. These women, you couldn't quite obtain a divorce in those times, so they resorted to using poison. And the way the story is written is there's somebody in the present day who starts to do research, and she learns about this woman who was this lost apothecary, and she starts to piece together pieces of history to find out who this woman was and how she got away with being famous for murder, what happened to her, and so forth. So that's one. So you have 2 voices. You have the woman who was the apothecary. You have the woman in modern day who was doing the research, but then there was somebody who approached this apothecary, a 13-year-old girl. This young woman was the 3rd voice in this story. So what was nice about reading this book in audio format is each character, each female character was a different narrator. So there was a real good vibe to this story. A very, very easy listen. I loved it. I'm going to give it 5 stars, and eventually I will get the review written so it'll go up on time. Then I decided that a couple months back, that I was going to work on my 2020 series goals. And one of the series that I will be finishing this year, I read the first 7, is the Stephanie Plum series by Janet Evonavich, and so I read 8, which was really good. It's a matter of in this book, yes, that she's a bounty hunter and she's trying to catch her next bounty, but it's also who is she going to choose, Granger or Joe, as far as her love interest. So I really like this book to see what direction Stephanie went in. I've got a drill stuck in here that I'm trying to get out, so I'm going to use my tweezers to get that out. I don't know when that drill got in there, but now I've got to add more wax. Let me grab these tweezers before they go all the way down. So that was Hard 8. Real quick read. I have it on audiobook. I think my library, I got it from my library. And then I got a book for review that comes out in March or April called The Bounty by Janet Evonavich and Steve Hamilton. And if I haven't said it once, I've said it a million times. I'm a series fanatic, so I went to my online libraries and I acquired all of the previous books, and I've read several of them. I'm just going to name them, and they are The Shell Game, Pros and Cons, The Heist, The Chase, The Job, The Scam, and The Pursuit. There's 2 more, which is The Big Kahuna and The Bounty. Now, which I'll get to in a few days, but I put them aside. Now, this is basically the Fox and O'Hare series. Fox is a con artist who was pursued by an FBI agent. Last name is O'Hare. Yes, I'm going to blank out on their first names. And she catches her man. He was one of the FBI's most wanted. He kept moving up on the FBI's most wanted list. And she catches him. He gets jailed for his con artist activities. And then the FBI comes up with a plan to release him to make her his handler. And the 2 of them work together to catch the most crafty criminals, like jewel thieves, art thieves, even what's the word I want to use? Chemical warfare plots. And that's what they do, is they run all over the world stopping these criminals. And it's really hard for Fox not to fall into his old ways of being a con artist. And like I said, I read most of the books, but I was looking at my blog tour schedule, and I decided to get some of my March blog tour books read before I read the last 2 books in the series. I really, really love the series, and I can't wait to have the time to get back to The Big Kahuna and The Bounty. But like I said, The Bounty won't be out for another month or 2, so there's certainly no rush to get to the last 2 books. When I read The Bounty, I think I'm done with number 3. When I read The Bounty, I will go back and I will write a series review across each and every book, and that will be published on my blog. It's not, sorry, I had something in my mouth. It's not for a blog tour, it's just for a regular review, but I do like to read series and write series reviews. And then we move on to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Why did I read that by Lewis Carroll? I read it because I'm doing every month, well, I usually do several reading challenges every month, and I did take 2 months off, but I picked up on 2 of them for February, and one of them, Reading Rivalry, had a prompt for reading a fantasy, and since I don't really read fantasy, and Alice in Wonderland fit in there, and I had already read it a few years ago, I thought, oh great, I'll read. Whoops, dropped my drill. That's okay. I see where they went. So I read Alice in Wonderland. Loved it. I know there's different audio books of it out there, but I was fortunate enough to find an audiobook that was a full cast audiobook with music and sound effects. So it was great. I loved it. And I do want to read Through the Looking Glass again. It's been years. And so that was Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. Let's see, my daughter sent a photo. I just want to, oh, she did another puzzle. Oh my goodness, I'll tell you about my daughter in a minute. Oh, that's exciting. Let's see, how can let me just tell her, cool, making a video. Give me 1 second. Okay. She did ring me, but I let the call go. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, I forgot what drills I picked up, folks. I picked up number 8. And I guess I'm doing a lot of confetti because every time I pick up drills, I only see a couple spots. So I don't see any more 8s. Yes, I do. All right. So after I read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, oh my gosh, this book I'm going to tell you about. I made a video of it, but it's worth talking about it again. This was called The Girl at the Back of the Bus by Suzanne D. Oh my gosh, why am I... Harrison. I'm tired. That's the only thing I can think of as far as why my memory wants to act stupid. Now, I have to tell you my history of this book. It's from Bookouture. That's the publisher, and I do lots and lots of blog tours for Bookouture. As a matter of fact, by far the majority of blog tours that I do are for this publisher. But remember, I had mentioned that November and December were awful for me, so I wasn't really paying attention to blog tour requests. So this book slipped through the cracks, and if not for seeing it come up in, I think it was either a Bookouture or a NetGalley post on Facebook, this book I may not have found out about this book. So I was able to grab it off of NetGalley, and I read it in just a few hours. I grabbed it and I read it. I mean, day one I grabbed it, and that same day I grabbed it, I read it. And then the publicist that is handling this book, Kim Nash, had a live Q&A for the author on Facebook live Facebook Q&A. So I went to that Q&A, and I already thought I had gained a lot. I see the letter E, so I'm going to grab that real quick and pop that drill in, even though I'm done with that color. And she interviewed Miss Harrison on Facebook, and I was already armed with the experience of reading the book, but now I get the benefit of talking to the author live with Kim, and the experience was beyond belief. Basically, and you can look this up, I'm not sure if you can look this up on Facebook as far as the interview is concerned, but in any event, there's this girl named Maddie Banks, who was 16 and pregnant, and pretty much lost everything because of that. So she was going to make a monumental decision, and she's on a bus heading somewhere to carry out a decision. Well, while she's on the bus, she witnesses what happened to Rosa Parks. Now, if you look at the cover, the girl on the back of the bus, you see a black girl, sitting in the back of a bus. Well, you can look up my review. I'm not going to fully go into what happened with Rosa Harrison, but let's just say that, not Rosa Harrison, Rosa Parks. Harrison is the author's name. Rosa Parks is an icon in Black history. She actually changed history as far as what happened to her on that bus. Well, when she was on this bus, this girl witnessed her act of bravery, and it changed this young girl's life and the decision that she was going to make. And so she goes back, and now her and her mother get closer than ever, and she goes on with her life, and her life makes incredible leaps and bounds. Meanwhile, this was back in 1955. In present day, I think 2019, according to how the book was written, another woman named Ashley, I think Ashley Turner, was a black lawyer, kind of passed on for promotion, very unhappy with her job. Her personal life was falling apart at the seams, and then to make everything even worse, her grandmother was dying, and so she goes back home to care for her dying grandmother. and she begins to learn things about her grandmother, and she learns these things through a bunch of old letters that she finds kind of in the floorboards. And so what she found in these letters not only helped to change her life in the direction her life was going in, but it drew her even closer to her grandmother than she ever would have imagined, and connected them in ways that she never would have expected. Excellent book, 5 stars all the way, and along with The Invisible Woman is definitely one of my favorite books for 2021. And now you've probably heard me talk about this book 2 to 3 times on this channel. The next book I read was Because of Miss Bridgerton. Now, this is not part of the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn. This is another series. It's the Bridgerton Cousins, and it's the first book. I think there's 4 or 5 books in that series. And I read this book because of that reading challenge I mentioned that I was doing for Reading Rivalry. I needed to read a Julia Quinn book, but because I had read the Bridgerton series already, I chose Because of Miss Bridgerton. And this was a very nice story, not as intense as the other series, but there was a level of seriousness in this book that made it a really, really good read. I'm trying to find my drills. Made it a good read, and honestly, if I hadn't had the prompt for a Julia Quinn book, I probably would not have gotten to it. So I'm not sure if I'm going to take the time to read the other books in the series, because I have quite a long list of books I need to read. Then I read The Jigsaw Man by Nadine Matheson. Now, this was a really, really good book, if not a little gruesome at times, because there was a copycat serial killer, and a black detective inspector was on the job to try to find who the serial killer was. And along the way, we learned about some of the challenges that she had experienced being a black woman in a job as detective inspector. So the book lightly touched on some of the racism that was going on at the time that this case was happening. I only needed one of those drills, and I fortunately only dropped one in there, so I can go on to the letter N. And so that was a really, really good book. It was very serious. Okay, that's Comcast. I mean, not Comcast. Verizon, but if my husband doesn't need me, I'm going. Oh, I just dropped some drills. They are gone. Okay, if Tony doesn't need me, he can handle that. So that was The Jigsaw Man. I don't think it's out yet. I think it's a month or 2 away from being released, but it was a really good book. Then I read A Stranger in Town by Kelly Armstrong. I don't think that review is yet written. It's one of the ones I have to write today. I think it was books, let's see, I think I had logged what number it was. What number in the series was this? 7 or 8? Okay, it was book number 6 in the Rockton series. Rockton is a town, sorry for the voices. Rockton is a town in Alaska where people are able to go to escape either a criminal past, a dangerous situation, let's say a woman running from her husband, and situations like that. And so in the town, Rockton is a very unusual town. There's a council that allows you to be there. You're only there for, I think you get like a 2-year period, and then you have to move on. Well, this book was a bit differently. A bit different than the series, because usually the series focuses on murders happening in Rockton, and there are 2 protagonists who are now a couple, a sheriff and a detective, and the detective herself actually is running from past. And now in this book, they run across a group of people who have developed something that is a drug that in some cases turns into a poison, and they're trying to isolate who is responsible for that. And it was a really good book. I don't have any notes on it because I haven't even begun to write the review, but once I sit down with it, I will, bring it back to mind and put it together as far as a comprehensive review. And I'll probably make a video of that when I get to it. And then I read The Vineyard at Painted Moon by Susan Mallory. I believe I have this for a blog tour on February 18th. Again, I have not yet written this review. And I wasn't quite ready to read the book. I was going to read it in a week or so. Somebody's calling me. I was going to be reading it in a week or so, but Shalene, the Coloring Book Nook, mentioned it on her channel that it was a 5-star read. So I went ahead and started it either that very night or that next day that Shalene was talking about it. Now, this book was so good. Definitely 5 stars. It's a women's fiction. It's about basically it's about a woman who works for a winery. She's married to the son of the winery's owner, and her marriage is not happy, but her job, she has great job security, and the owner, Barbara, loves her as a daughter, and she fits quite in. But her marriage had already started to deteriorate, and when she makes a specific decision, her life just totally unravels. And meanwhile, there's other characters. It's her sisters-in-law, her husband, her new boss, her mother-in-law, even her nieces and nephews. Really, really good story. I'm trying to see where these drills here are off. There's a space there. And I'm just trying, if my head's in the camera, forgive me. I'm just going to try to see where I messed up here. So let me see if I can fix this. I may not be able to. I may have to look a little closer at it to see why there's such a huge gap, because I don't think another drill is going to fit in there. So we're just going to leave that, and I'm going to fix that off camera. So that was The Vineyard at Painted Moon by Susan Mallory. Really, really good book. I will get that review written and a video made of that review as well. And then I read The Broken Ones by Carla Kovach. And remember earlier I was kind of confusing 2 long-standing series? Well, that's because I read the other one. And so this one was the 5th or 6th book in a series, the Detective Gina Hart series. And this was a good one. Gina is a really strong character who overcame a very, very troubled past. She's a strong detective despite the trauma that she experienced in her previous marriage. She's currently dating, but that's kind of affected by who she is in her trauma. So while she is working on another murder case, her past keeps coming up in this book, and it was a really good book. It's for a blog tour. No, I have not yet written the review. I haven't written a lot of these reviews yet. I keep saying I'm going to do that today, and I will. So that was Broken Ones by Carla Kovach. The Goodreads page is a little bit misconstrued. Maybe it'll be corrected before the book gets released. It's not out yet, but it was a good book and a good book in the series, and I'm glad I read it. And then I read Mystery by the Sea, and this was by Verity Bright. I did write it down. It's the 5th book in the Lady Eleanor Swift series. I wanted to say that correctly. Eleanor Swift is she's in her 30s. She's an archaeologist who has traveled the world, but in the first few books of the series we learned that she was left a hotel, I believe, by her uncle who has since passed away. And now she's a lady, because it's in the 1800s or the 1930s, I think the 1930s. And but she doesn't quite conduct herself as a lady. She's more of an amateur sleuth, and she has, I messed up a couple of drills. Look at this mess I just made. Sometimes the canvas will cause the drills to slide and create problems, but we'll get it. I always get it. Just trying to get this one here back in place. Okay, there we go. Everything's in there now. So that was the 5th book in the series. A really good book. It's the holidays, and what she does is she takes our goodness, what is her sidekick? The butler. I can't think of his name right now. She takes him, her dog, and her kitchen staff on holiday. Remember, she doesn't quite handle propriety well, but she takes them on holiday, and like in previous times, she happens upon a murder, but this particular murder victim is somebody she knew of her past, and she is shocked to the point of fainting when she discovers who the victim is, and so quite naturally she has to solve the murder. Great book. If you love cozy mysteries, you would love this series. I love reading every single book in it, and I hope it continues for a long time. And then the last book I read that I'll talk about in this video is After the Crash, and that was by Emma Davies. And here, this book was a really good book. I guess it's women's fiction. I didn't look up the genre, but it's about a woman whose husband of, I think, 29 years or so has passed away, and she is currently staying with her daughter and her husband. I think the daughter's name is Laura, the husband's name is Robin, and they are renovating a hotel. And meanwhile, her life is in shambles because her finances were messed up. Her husband was financially irresponsible, so she doesn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So she goes to stay with her daughter and her husband in the hotel that's being renovated, and she's trying to get back to her career as a journalist. And so she gets assigned a story by her editor, and it's this story that truly changes the course of what she thinks happened to her husband when he was killed. It was by a drunk driver, by the way. And a whole lot happens to her and her daughter and her husband. A very effective story, a very emotional story, one that I really enjoyed. I have it for a blog tour sometime in March, and so no, I haven't written that review either. So can you tell I'm going to be writing for the next couple of days. Sorry for the voices in the background, but the cable company's here. So that's going to wrap it up. You know, when I do these whip and chat videos, I will admit that I don't always get a lot accomplished on my diamond paintings. And it could be because my wax is acting silly on my pen, I dropped drills, and I'm working on a lot of confetti. Those are going to be my excuses. And then I don't know if you just saw me slide over. I hope I'm in frame. And my canvas is a little slippery in a couple areas. This is a Diamond Art Club painting, so I'm not expecting a slippery canvas. So to kind of give you an idea where I am, I'm going to fix this drill.
How many cable boxes do you have? 2?
So I will end this video by telling you, like I said, that's book 25 for the month, 64 for the year, and that brings me to, looks like I have read 17,980 pages for this year, and I have read 7,430 pages for the month, which is averaging almost 700 pages a day. So I've been quite busy, quite busy. So anyway, the cable guy and my husband are talking rather loud, so I guess it's time for me to end this video. So I want to thank you for your time. I don't know how long this ran. 49 minutes, but I will probably edit this in to bring in the book covers, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much for your attention. Oh, can I just say something to my sister Gail and to my sister Ari, who are now diamond painting? Let me know if you watching me work on this has answered any questions you have. I will say I'm working with an A2 light pad on a drafting table at a slant. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I said I was going to mention it, is my daughter Ari, I have a sister named Ari and a daughter named Ari, has just started doing jigsaw puzzles. So she called me while I've been recording to show me that she finished another jigsaw puzzle. So I am going to highlight the 2 puzzles that she finished. When I edit this video, I'm going to show you that she's doing puzzles now. So 2 of my sisters are diamond painting and 1 of my children is doing jigsaw puzzles. So I think that's about it. I want to thank you for your time, and I will be back with more soon. Bye bye.